Alright, hello guys, how's it going? In today's video we're going to be going over our second edition of our summer 2020 forecast. This might be the last update, but I think I will be making one just before June if I do have any tweaks to give this one. But before I get started with this video though, I would ask that you do subscribe if you do like weather related content, and also make sure to share this video with your friends, family, and social media. Now for today's comment of the day, I want to know, in the summertime do you look forward to the really hot weather, or are you looking forward to some quite pleasant, just warm weather? Let me know in the comments down below and I'll be picking one of those comments for tomorrow's video. Now let's start getting into our precipitation forecast to start things out. We do have a slightly below average precipitation region up there for the extreme northeastern United States, upstate New York, in through Vermont, New Hampshire, and Maine. This is a feature that was in my previous update for my summer forecast, but it has gotten a lot smaller and extended further and further north. It used to really have a lot more areas further south included, but I've pushed it further north and weakened it quite a bit here. Now we have a second region with some below average precipitation for the Pacific Northwest, Northern California, Northern Nevada, up through Northern Utah as well, and then throughout the Northern Rockies like Wyoming, Montana, and Idaho. All of these regions I'm expecting at least some slightly below average precipitation. Now we're about to move on, and I'm going to add a second layer of some below average precipitation, and then we're going to get into our above average precipitation, and then finally we will get into that temperature forecast, the hurricane forecast, and also our overall forecast. Now here's that second layer right here, and that's going to be our moderately below average precipitation. You can see it's basically for Washington and Oregon, with a tiny bit of Idaho and Northern California included there, but mostly the states of Oregon and Washington. I'm expecting some pretty dry conditions. I have pretty high confidence that we're going to have some below average precipitation. Looking at my analogs, what NOAA's thinking, and really just my previous forecast as far as what I'm expecting this summertime, this is basically on all cylinders. I'm seeing drier than normal conditions for the Pacific Northwest, so I'm sticking with it. We don't expect to see a huge amount of precipitation for this region in the summertime, believe it or not, mostly fall time, summer, and spring. But still, I think we will be below what we're typically used to for these Pacific Northwest regions up there. So to recap, the Northeast and the Northwest will be experiencing some drier than normal conditions. Further south, we haven't gotten into that yet, or the middle of the United States. But what we're going to do is we're actually going to move on, and we're going to start talking about where we could see some above average precipitation. As I move on, just keep in mind in the back of your head where I'm putting these things, because this will actually pertain to our severe weather forecast for this summer as well. If we get some above average precipitation with the cold and the warmth being nearby, that would really encourage a lot of severe weather. So again, keep that in the back of your head as we move on here. And for this light green region, this is where we're going to be experiencing some above average precipitation. This is going to be slightly to maybe even moderate, but for Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas, Nebraska, Iowa, even through the southern regions of Minnesota and Wisconsin, and then down through the Ohio Valley, even into the mid-Atlantic, and then back through the southeast and south central United States. All of these light green regions, I'm expecting some slightly above average precipitation at least. And this is going to add to some thunderstorms at least, because this is an area where we expect some quite frequent thunderstorms throughout the summer months, especially the East Coast. And the further north you go, that's where we start to see actually most of our severe weather for a lot of the northern regions here, is during the months of June, July, and August. And what we're really going to need to keep in mind is the temperatures. As we move on to the temperatures, you should remember where I had the above average precipitation, because if we see cold to the north and warm to the south, I talked about this in yesterday's video, that's just going to be more extreme differences in the temperatures, and that's going to lead to an enhanced chance for severe weather. And if it's coupled with the above average precipitation especially, that's really going to encourage thunderstorm development and also severe weather to develop. As we add a second layer here of above average precipitation, you can see for Texas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Missouri, and even through portions of the Ohio Valley like Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, back through West Virginia, and then even Virginia, and everywhere to the south and east of those regions, we're all going to be dealing with some moderately above average precipitation for these darker green regions. And this is also obviously where we see a lot of our severe weather during the spring and summer months. So it is important to note that we do have a lot of above average precipitation expected. I think especially Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas, and Missouri is interesting, because that's where we usually see the heart of the severe weather set up for the summertime, even Nebraska and Iowa. So what we're going to do is we're about to move on to our temperature forecast, where we're going to talk about where we could see some above average temperatures and where we could see some below average temperatures. Afterwards, we're going to get into our hurricane forecast and finally our overall forecast. Now, to get things started, let's get into the below average temperature region. And I had this in a similar region in my last update, but I've gone ahead and extended it towards the Great Lakes and portions of the Ohio Valley. I think that at times the trough will head a little bit further east than what I was originally anticipating. And if that's the case, then we will sometimes see the colder than normal air set up over the Great Lakes. But I still think that most of the time it's going to be set over Montana, the Dakotas, Wyoming, and portions of Nebraska, possibly Minnesota and Iowa. Keeping the Great Lakes warmer, but at times it'll also shift eastward where we will see the Great Lakes turn colder than normal. And really that's why I have it in the slightly below average temperature region, because it's really on average going to be a little bit below average, but I think that at times we will see warm-ups in both regions, and that's going to make it a lot closer to normal conditions. I hope that makes sense. I don't mean to get too technical. Now, to the south, we have some above average temperatures expected, kind of horseshoeing around those colder than normal conditions. So the west coast, the south central, the southeast, and then even up through the northeast and all of the east coast, we're going to be dealing with some slightly above average temperatures. Again, if we see warmer than normal conditions to the south and colder than normal conditions to the north, that's just making the differences more extreme than what is typical. And I think this is really going to lead to an enhanced risk for severe weather throughout eastern Colorado, Nebraska, Kansas, Missouri, Iowa, Illinois, even Arkansas, Missouri, and Oklahoma and Texas as well. Even maybe possibly into Kentucky, Indiana, and Ohio, all of those areas where we have cold to the north, or colder than normal conditions to the north, and warmer conditions to the south. All right. We even have a second region with some above average temperatures. So for Texas, Oklahoma, and through the eastern United States, I'm really expecting some moderately above average temperatures to be possible here, and this is going to be a region where it's actually going to be, well above average. I think we could see some heat waves for the deep south and even the south central United States, similar to what we had during August of last year for Texas and Oklahoma. Very dry conditions, very, very warm compared to normal. And these can create some big heat waves that could potentially even be dangerous. So we're really going to want to be on the watch for this, because if we do see that high pressure system set up over Texas at any point during the summer, that can create some very, very hot and dry conditions like I stated before. All right, now we're about to move on, and what we're going to do is we're going to take a look again at that hurricane forecast, my most previous hurricane forecast, and then what we're going to do is get into that overall forecast. All right, and as we take a look here, this was my most previous hurricane forecast. You can see for our main development region, which is basically in that red color, that's all you need to know. We're seeing very favorable conditions for hurricane development earlier on in their track, which is really going to lead to some stronger storms making their way closer to the United States. We're expecting warmer than normal sea surface temperatures offshore of Mexico and into portions of the southern Caribbean and the southern Gulf. So really what that's going to lead to is some more homegrown systems is what we'd call them, very close to the United States. The wild card is really for the East Coast, because are they going to be able to track up the East Coast, or are they mostly going to head into the Gulf? That remains to be unseen, and really that's not something we're going to know until we see the storms hitting or we see the surface patterns and see if it's a likelihood. So we're never really going to know if they will be able to track up the East Coast or if they will mostly go into the Gulf. That's why it will remain a wild card basically until hurricane season starts. Now, the best chance for landfall is obviously going to be Florida, Georgia, Mississippi, Alabama, Louisiana, and Texas, and that's really not too far from what's typical, but I do think that we will have an above average chance for some landfalling tropical storms and hurricanes this year. I just wanted to update you guys on the hurricane forecast and what we're thinking as of right now, because I think that's mostly a summer and fall time thing, so I did want to let you guys know what my current thoughts are on the hurricane forecast. I'm going to be having a new hurricane forecast coming out actually within the next month, so be on the lookout for that one. Now let's get into that exciting overall forecast now, and you can see that it is a little bit similar to our previous one, but there is a lot of changes. So I'm going to take it from west to east and just talk about every single region individually. Starting out in the northwest, we're expecting some more dry conditions, also warmer than normal, I must note. Then to the south, we're seeing warmer than normal conditions for the southwest. And then for the Rockies, basically a flip-flop pattern. It's going to be colder at times and maybe even warmer at times. Really, it's going to be all over the place. Drier than normal at times, warmer than normal at times. Really, we can't really pick what it's going to be like there. It's just going to be all over the place. For Texas and some of the surrounding states, we're expecting some heat waves to be possible within that kind of purplish color. Be on the lookout for that. Up in our blue region for the Midwest and portions of the north central United States, as well as into the Great Lakes, we're expecting some cool shots to be possible. Notice not cold shots. Obviously, it's not going to be cold during the summertime, but there will be some cooler, more pleasant weather that comes down from Canada at times. We're going to be seeing the potential for most of our severe weather to take place in this red region, in between where the colder than normal conditions will set up and the warmer than normal conditions, coupled with the above average precipitation. This could be another big severe weather summer, as well as just following our big severe weather spring that we've had so far. Really bad news there. For our green region here, we're expecting some pretty active thunderstorms. More active than what you would typically expect because it's going to be warmer than normal, and also we will have some above normal precipitation. Those things together combined will create more thunderstorms than what is typically expected. To the south, for the Gulf Coast and even the East Coast, we're expecting active tropics, so that will therefore increase the chance for some landfalling storms like I mentioned before. For portions of the Northeast, we're going to be seeing hot spells in that orange region. It will be cooler and more pleasant at times, but I do think there will be some weeks or maybe extended amount of days where we will see some hotter weather really dig in to the northeastern United States. And last but not least, for northern New England, warm and dry conditions are expected. All right, now let's get into our comment of the day, and I asked you guys, what do you think the hurricane season is going to be like this year? And Jimmy S. said, honestly, this is a very high number, but I think we could have a hyperactive season with 18 to 22 named storms, 7 to 11 hurricanes, and 3 to 6 majors. You know, I don't really know if it'll be quite that high, but I do think it's not out of the possibilities, the realms of what's possible. So we will have to see if that's correct or not. This one got a lot of likes though, so I chose it for the comment of the day. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching this video. Again, be sure to share it with your friends, family, and social media. I will see you guys in the next video.